Hello, everybody. Joey Morgan here, and tomorrow's the big day. Tomorrow, Doctor Who Exodus Part 1 releases, and the following parts, of course, will be released in subsequent weekly parts, and I'm kind of nervous, to be honest. It's a big thing for me. It's the first Doctor Who audio story that I have fully edited together by myself, of course, without something that wouldn't have been made possible without the amazing cast that I have, but putting it together was a big project for me. I wanted to do a Q&A video, sort of, on the day before the first part released, but everywhere I kind of posted it, we didn't really get that great of a response to the Q&A, social media questions, any questions that you could ask, send them my way, and we didn't really get a great response. I will still answer what we did get, though. Some people send in multiple questions, some people just sent in one. I guess I'll get this first one out of the way. It comes on Twitter from our very own Jacob Licklider, who wrote the original adaptation of this, which says, in comparison to Genesis, Apocalypse, and Revelation, how difficult was Exodus to script, edit, and cast? Well, I can't necessarily speak on the scripting aspect, of course, as that was your job, Jacob. Exodus was a bit more difficult to tackle than the other Time Worm stories up to this point and what we will have beyond, because it's a bit more of a sensitive story. I won't keep going on about how, it's a Nazi story. It was difficult to get people who would play real life Nazis. Obviously, that was a big thing. But of course, I think, the original book really lent itself to handling those matters in a tactful way. It's a very Terrance Dicks script. It handles those matters in a very, I don't want to say tongue-in-cheek way, but a way that makes it a lot more digestible. So in a way, the strength of the original book itself made Exodus pretty easy to put together. But as far as editing, I think the very real setting of this story helped us as far as editing the story together, because you're creating a very real environment. So you had to get very real sounds for it, if that makes any sense. You'll get what I mean more when you listen to the story. But yeah, and as far as casting, well, let's just say I'll get to that later in this video. Next up comes on Twitter from our very own Brian Corrigan, which just says comic adaptations question mark. The short answer to that is no. The long answer to that goes a little something like, we have no clue. It's very up in the air. We've certainly talked about it before, but it's not something that we want to jump on, because obviously, first off, first and foremost, we're making novel adaptations, and overall, just novels have a bit more sway in the Doctor Who universe than comics do. But also, Big Finish is starting up their comic adaptations with that fourth Doctor box set coming out soon. So we have no clue what's going to be going on with that. So we don't want to be presumptuous and jump on anything that Big Finish hasn't done yet, because they very well may continue. Whereas with the novels, the only real future for Big Finish novel adaptations is adapting like Eighth Doctor Adventures and BBC books, which obviously right now we're adapting the Virgin books. Next up, we have a couple questions coming from Eastface Productions on Twitter, who actually made the new channel banner and channel icon that you see here on the Joey Morgan YouTube channel. So huge shout out to him. Follow him on Twitter. He's great. But first question he asks is, what was the hardest part of the book to adapt, and what was the easiest? As far as adapting goes, obviously, like I said, that was mostly Jacob's job, but I feel like it's also pretty apt for me, because I had to script edit it and then edit the scenes together. So I would say hardest part, if we're going specifically, there's this big conflict towards the end of part 4 with the main villain, that a lot of characters are involved in, a lot of side characters. We had to get a lot of extra voices, who will of course be credited in the description on part 4. So you'll see them, people who helped out bring a lot of random side characters who don't really technically have lines, but we had to get a certain sound. So it was very difficult in that and also just representing that in an audio format, that scene, if anybody knows what I'm talking about, was very difficult. And as far as the easiest, I mean, it's a Terrence Dicks novel. It's very easy to read into, very easy to put to a scene overall, you know, other than very specific parts that were more difficult. But on the whole, I would say like easiest, you know, the Doctor, you know, taking charge in a way that he does in this book, and thus in this story, really was very easy to put on, because it just flows so naturally. And Terrence Dicks is such a great writer, that he makes it so easy to digest, as it were. So next up, he asks, why did you decide to adapt this story in particular? Well, I mean, I guess that's not really so much a question as to why do we choose to adapt this story, because obviously we adapted Time Worm Genesis, and we're going to continue to adapt the New Adventures. So I guess the question overall is more, why are we adapting the Virgin New Adventures? And really, it's a passion project, you know. It comes from Jacob Licklider, you know, his mind. He has been, to my knowledge, he had been pushing for it, and thus Brian eventually took on the original project, and then he passed it on to me, and so now I am adapting this story, or not adapting. Well, I guess I'm adapting it, putting together the story itself, and future stories, the rest of the Time Worm arc, and what will come beyond that. So then he asks, do you have any future plans for other novels? Well, yes, I'll talk about that right now. Didn't realize that was the next question. Works perfectly. So we're adapting, of course, the rest of the Time Worm novels, being Apocalypse and Revelation. Expect the Revelation casting call in, I know I originally said middle of March. We're probably going to shoot for early March, though, so be on the lookout then. And then after that, we're adapting our first Virgin Missing Adventure, starring Brian Corrigan as the Sixth Doctor in Time of Your Life. Then we're going to do the New Adventures Cat's Cradle arc with the Seventh Doctor. That's 3 stories. Then we're doing our next Missing Adventure adaptation that I will not announce just yet. You're going to have to wait for that. It's one I'm really, really excited for. And then we'll just kind of go in this pattern. We won't be adapting the ones already adapted by Big Finish or anyone else for that matter. So I won't announce anything else beyond that. We'll probably, the ideal pattern after Cat's Cradle and Virgin Missing Adventure after that, the ideal pattern is going to be 2 new adventures, 1 missing adventure. Every now and then we'll stray from that. We have a whole schedule. Obviously, I won't run through all that right now. And last question says, this is still from eSpace, that is, what are some of your biggest regrets concerning the adaptation of the novel? I don't think I would say I have any regrets just yet, you know. I'm still very much, you know, stuck in the hype of it all. Regrets, I have regrets of Genesis. I wouldn't say that. I think I'll develop regrets regarding Exodus later on, but as far as regrets for past things, you know, some casting decisions that were somewhat misguided. You know what? That's about it. But you know, that's all fixed now for Exodus. So Exodus, you know, I don't really have any regrets right now, but I think as far as Exodus and future stories, you know, I don't have any regrets at the very moment. I'm sure I'll develop some as I think about it and overthink as I do so well. But as of right now, I think it's a solid project, and I think you guys are really going to like it. Then, of course, I went over to Whovians Amino to look for questions, and we didn't get a great response. But the only question I guess really worth bringing up here is how long was the process of adapting the story? And then he says, as in from novel to script format. I cannot say what this name is, who this comes from on Whovians Amino, but it's in another language, I think. I don't know, there's another symbol there. I have no clue if it's even supposed to mean anything. I apologize so much. But how long was the process? Really short, actually. Jacob really knocked out a lot of the Time Worm scripts really early on. You know, now we've kind of slowed down. I won't say how far we're in. Nah, I might as well. We just finished scripting the Cat's Cradle arc, you know, so we're really far ahead. But As far as adapting Exodus specifically, I'd say about a month, maybe. I want to say, we got right through Genesis, right through Exodus. We were really on a production high, and Jacob wasn't stopping for anything. So I think the more impressive feat would be to try to calculate how long it took him to adapt the 4 Time Worm stories, which I would say as a whole probably about 3-4 months. Maybe I'm overestimating. I don't know. Yeah, he went through it really fast, and overall I was really impressed. But wow, this is turning out way longer than I expected. I apologize for that, but I did just want to take one last opportunity now that we ran through all the questions, to talk about our cast, the amazing cast of Doctor Who Exodus. First off, of course, I would like to. I'm just going to give thanks to everyone individually, because, God, without this amazing cast, I don't know where the hell I would be right now. First off, of course, though, I'd like to thank Jacob Licklider and Corey Williams, aka Ark, who helped me cast and put this cast together. Without them, I have no clue how I would have come up with any decisions by myself. They really were this other voice of reassurance that I really needed when putting it together. And of course, Jacob Licklider plays Herman Goring, and he adapted the script. So both those amazing people, I am eternally grateful to. Next up, to Andre Oliveira, I think, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who of course plays the museum caretaker, who brought a really human character to life, and I think a really enjoyable part of the story, albeit somewhat small. It's a really humanizing element of the story that I thoroughly enjoy. And yes, you're going to hear a paper flip there because I have a paper in front of me of the cast. Next up, to Harry Robbins, who plays our Sydney Harris. Spot on there. Really portrayed the absolute dickishness of Sydney Harris that just I enjoyed listening to every second of. Then, of course, there's Charles Spencer, though some of us, though a smaller group of friends to me will know him as Sin, who plays Joseph Goebbels. Really brought this creepy and unsettling character to life. That's just utterly spine-tingling to listen to. Of course, Finley Wade, who played our Arnold, good old Arnold, the weasel that he is. Really devilish sort of character, and could not imagine any other sly voice portraying him. So huge thanks to Finley for bringing that character together. Next up, of course, I want to thank the always phenomenal Anna Price, who brought the character of Ishtar to the Time Worm, and now the Time Worm continues to rage on in the Time Worm arc. I am so grateful to have Anna as a continuing part of this project. She's utterly fantastic. Next to Dylan Heath, who most may know him on YouTube as Lord Slar, who plays Martin Bormann in this. Absolutely wonderful performance. I really can't overstate this at all. Great performance from a great friend of mine. I think you guys are really gonna like him. Next up, we have Nathan Beatty. I think Beatty. I apologize. I've known you for a while now, and I still can't pronounce your last name. Who of course plays Lieutenant Hemmings and the good Heinrich Himmler, or I guess the bad Heinrich Himmler. He's a bad guy. Who double roles in this, and who originally played Aga in Genesis. Really brings these villainous characters to life, and just does a phenomenal job at it. Yes, I know you're very critical of your microphone as Hemmings. I think you're just fine. Don't worry about it. Next up, we have Nicholas Payne as good old Popplewell. Really fun character, crotchety old man to listen to. I enjoyed every second of editing your lines together. Really phenomenal stuff. Next up, a very special thank you to Audrey and Timothy Lombardo, who are actually family members of mine. They're my aunt and uncle, who play Ma Barker and Albert Spear, respectively. And they auditioned just like everyone else. Of course, I wasn't gonna personally cast them. I sent it off to Jacob and Corey, and they just they cast them. I really can't be more thankful to, again, Jacob and Corey, but also to Audrey and Timmy, just coming out, auditioning for it like everyone else, not expecting anything, and really knocking it out of the park. So thank you guys so much. Next up, a personal favorite of mine, the absolute highlight of this story for me. Elada, whatever. I apologize for butchering your name if I am. Elada Cole as the amazing General Strasser. I'm laughing, I know, because Strasser, I think, is just the absolute comic gold and levity of this story, that I could not help but laugh out loud every single time I listen to your lines. Just absolutely amazing. A character that I always envisioned exactly as you portrayed them, and really could not be more thankful for having someone like you to portray General Strasser. Next up, the always great Zach Rosenfeld as quote-unquote the scientist, and who double roles also as Harry Gold. An amazing guy, that we have worked with in the past and will continue to work with in the future. Huge thanks to you, man. Just, you really brought specifically quote unquote the scientist to life, and really, just knocked it out of the park again. I know I keep saying that. How many times have I said that? Start a counter in the comments. Next up, of course, Sir Jedi Sentinel as Dr. Krieg's leader. Just, oh, how wonderfully evil. That's all I can really say. Just, oh, what a performance. Gave me chills every single time. And to think we were almost going to cut off the auditions for this character early. So glad we waited for the audition. Really just absolutely phenomenal. I cannot wait for everyone listening to hear his performance. Almost at the end here, guys. I know this video is going on a bit long, but next up, almost last, most definitely not least, Brian Corrigan. What is there to say about Brian Corrigan? But thank you. Thank you for everything. The reason that I am interested in audio editing, the reason that I'm good at audio editing, I think at least I'm good. I don't know. I hope I am. And of course, Brian is an amazing actor as well, who is portraying Adolf Hitler in this, and George Brady. Just thank you. I think that's really all I can sum up my words in. Just thank you so much, Brian, for being such a great guy. Such a great support throughout all of this, and really just helping me out through times that I was unsure of myself, for providing voices when I needed you to. Thank you so much for that, and really just making me the editor that I am right now. Really, thank you so much. And last but most certainly not least, Georgia Spencer, our ace, our new ace, as it were. Ever since I had heard you, I'll talk directly to Georgia, had heard you as Ninaari in Genesis, I knew you were an amazing actor, and I knew that that I would want you to continue to be a part of everything we were doing. And who knew we'd be here? Georgia, of course, was always adamant about being a part of the project. Of course, it wasn't just like we offered Ace to her. She auditioned like everyone else. Even from being in Genesis, even though she knew us already, she auditioned like everyone else. Went through a totally fair process and absolutely killed it. So congratulations, of course, to Georgia, to our new Ace, and for just being the best replacement we could have possibly asked for. Thank you. And so one final thank you, of course, to the cast of Exodus, the cast of Apocalypse, to Revelation, onward. Well, we haven't cast Revelation yet, but still. Thank you to everyone involved with the project, everyone listening to and supporting the project. Thank you, just from the bottom of my heart. Absolutely. Thank you so much for believing in me, I guess, believing in the project, believing in everything that we can accomplish as a bunch of nerds who want to put together some Doctor Who stories that we read once in a book. So thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow when Doctor Who Exodus Part 1 is released. Goodbye.